When I was 7 years old, something happened in the Alaskan wilderness during Christmas that I still can't shake off. It was supposed to be a simple task, just me and my best friend Marcus trying to earn a few dollars. But what started as an innocent afternoon turned into the most terrifying experience of my life. I grew up in a tiny village where everyone knew everyone. We could tell you which snowmobile belonged to which family just by the engine sound. We knew every face, every name, every family tree. That's why when we met them in the forest that day, we knew immediately something was very, very wrong. They seemed friendly at first, too friendly. And when Marcus asked them the one question that should have had a simple answer in our small village, they went silent. What happened next still haunts me 9 years later. Sometimes I wake up at night thinking about what could have happened if Marcus hadn't been there. If he hadn't noticed what I was too young to see, if he hadn't grabbed my hand and whispered those words that saved my life. I never found out who those men were, but as I got older, I realized exactly what they wanted, and it terrifies me to think how close they came to getting it. Dear viewers, tell us where you are watching from in the comments below. We want to know which state you're in so we can upload a terrifying story about your area next. Now, let me tell you the full story of what happened that day in Alaska. I'm 16 now and live in Anchorage, but I spent the first 8 years of my life in a tiny village in rural Alaska. For some people, it might seem strange that I was allowed to walk around our small settlement without my parents watching me from a very young age, but that's just how life was up there. The village itself wasn't very big. The entire population was about 90 people, give or take. It was the kind of place where basically everyone knew everyone. Me and my friends could tell you which snowmobile belonged to which family just by the sound of the engine. We knew who was home by checking whose chimney was smoking. We knew which dog was barking 3 houses down. That's how small it was. It was December, right before Christmas. I must have been about 7 years old, maybe 8. The days were short up there during winter. The sun would barely peek over the horizon before disappearing again. By 3 in the afternoon, it was already getting dark. The snow was everywhere, piled up to our waists in some places. Everything was white and gray and cold. My best friend back then was a kid named Marcus. He lived 2 houses down from mine, in a cabin that always smelled like firewood and his mom's cooking. Marcus was the same age as me, but he always acted older, more serious, more careful. My mom used to joke that Marcus was born 40 years old. That particular day, Marcus and I were obsessed with getting our hands on some hot chocolate mix, the fancy kind with the little marshmallows already in it. We'd seen it at the general store a few days earlier, and ever since then, we couldn't stop thinking about it. The problem was we didn't have enough money. We were just a couple of dollars short. We'd been doing small jobs around the village for a few days, trying to earn enough, shoveling snow off porches, carrying firewood, that sort of thing. But we still needed a bit more. That's when Mrs. Peterson called us over. Mrs. Peterson was this old woman who lived alone at the edge of the village. Her husband had died years before I was born, and she didn't have any kids. She was nice enough. Always had hard candies in her pockets that she'd give us kids, but she was also known for being particular about things. Everything had to be just right with her. She was standing on her porch, wrapped in about 3 layers of blankets, waving us over. The snow was falling lightly, those small flakes that don't really pile up but just kind of float around forever. "Boys," she called out, "I need help with something." We trudged through the snow to her porch. Our boots made that crunching sound that only happens when snow is really cold and packed down hard. "I need spruce boughs," she said, "for Christmas decorations. I want the fresh ones, the ones that still smell nice. I need enough to fill 2 big bags." She held up 2 canvas bags that looked huge to our 7-year-old eyes. "I'll pay you $5 each if you can fill both bags by tonight," she said. Marcus and I looked at each other. $5 each? That was way more than we needed for the hot chocolate. We could even get some candy with the leftover money. "Deal," I said immediately. Mrs. Peterson smiled and handed us the bags. "Make sure they're nice ones. No brown needles. I want them fresh and green." We set off into the woods behind the village. The forest was thick with spruce and pine trees, all of them heavy with snow. It should have been easy to fill 2 bags with spruce boughs, but Mrs. Peterson wanted specific ones, the ones that were still bright green, the ones that smelled the strongest, the ones that weren't dried out or browning. It was harder than we thought. We walked deeper and deeper into the forest, trying to find the perfect branches. The problem was that most of the good branches were too high up for us to reach, and the low ones were usually the oldest and most dried out. We'd been at it for what felt like hours, and we'd barely filled half of 1 bag. The sun was setting. Well, not really setting. It had never really risen that day, but what little light we'd had was fading fast. The sky went from gray to darker gray to almost black. The temperature was dropping too. I could feel it through my gloves. "Maybe we should head back," Marcus said. He'd been quiet for the last 20 minutes, which wasn't like him. "We're so close," I said, though we really weren't. That's when we heard voices. At first, I thought it was someone from the village. Maybe someone else was out gathering wood or checking trap lines. But as the voices got closer, I realized I didn't recognize them. 2 figures appeared through the trees. They were tall, well, tall to us, probably around 5'7" or so. Both of them were dressed in dark winter clothes, thick coats with the hoods pulled up. Their faces were hidden in shadow. They were walking towards us with purpose, like they'd been looking for something. Or someone. "Hey there," one of them called out. His voice was friendly, almost too friendly. And when Marcus asked them the one question that should have had a simple answer in our small village, they went silent. "Where are you from?" Marcus asked the 2 guys. His voice had changed. It was different now, more direct, almost challenging. In a village of 90 people, that was the question. That was the question that mattered. Because if you were from the village, Marcus would know your parents, your grandparents, your cousins. He'd know your last name, where you lived, what your dad did for work. That's just how it was. The 2 guys hesitated. "We're just passing through," the one with the scar said. "Passing through from where?" Marcus pushed. "Down south," the other one said vaguely. "Look, do you want to see the spot or not? It's getting dark." That's when I felt it. That feeling in your stomach when something is wrong but you don't know what. Like when you're about to get in trouble but you haven't figured out why yet. The 2 guys started walking, assuming we'd follow. They were heading deeper into the forest, away from the direction of the village. "Come on," the one with the patchy beard called back. "It's not far." Marcus grabbed my arm, hard. "There's something wrong," he whispered to me. "Those guys are lying." "How do you know?" I whispered back. "I just know," he said. "Trust me." The 2 guys had stopped walking. They were about 20 feet ahead of us now, standing in a small clearing. They were looking back at us, waiting. "You coming?" the one with the scar called out. The forest felt different suddenly. Darker, quieter. The trees seemed to press in closer. I couldn't hear any sounds from the village anymore. No dogs barking, no snowmobiles, no nothing. Just wind through the branches and my own breathing. Marcus leaned in close to my ear. His breath was warm against my cold face. "When I say run," he whispered, "you run as fast as you can back to the village. Don't stop. Don't look back. Just run." "What? Why?" "Run, now." Marcus yanked me backward and took off running. I stumbled for a second, confused, but then I heard one of the guys shout behind us and my body just reacted. I ran. I ran faster than I ever ran in my life. The bags of spruce boughs fell somewhere behind me. I didn't care. My boots pounded through the snow, slipping and sliding. Marcus was ahead of me, pulling me by my coat sleeve. Behind us, I heard shouting. I heard boots crunching in the snow, running. They were chasing us. "Don't stop," Marcus yelled. I was crying. I don't remember when I started crying, but tears were freezing on my cheeks. My lungs burned from the cold air. My legs hurt. Everything hurt. But I kept running because Marcus was pulling me and because I could hear those guys behind us, and I didn't understand what was happening, but I knew it was bad. We burst out of the tree line into the open area behind the village. I could see the lights from the houses, could see smoke rising from chimneys. We were close, so close. I risked a look back. The two guys had stopped at the edge of the forest. They were just standing there, watching us. They didn't follow us into the open area. They just stood there in the shadows between the trees, perfectly still. Then they turned and disappeared back into the forest. Marcus didn't stop running until we reached Mrs. Peterson's porch. We collapsed against her front door, both of us gasping for air, both of us crying now. Mrs. Peterson opened the door and we practically fell inside. She took one look at us, at our faces, at the terror in our eyes, and immediately locked the door behind us. "What happened?" she demanded. Marcus told her everything, about the two guys, about how they wanted to lead us deeper into the forest, about how they wouldn't say who they were or where they were from. He told her about the chase. I couldn't speak. I just sat on her floor, shaking, trying to breathe. Mrs. Peterson's face went white. She immediately called the village council member, who called the state troopers, who said they'd send someone, but it would be hours before anyone could get out to us because of the snow. Some of the men from the village grabbed rifles and flashlights and went into the forest to search. They didn't find anyone. No tracks, no sign of the two guys. It was like they'd never existed. Marcus got grounded for a month. His parents were furious that he let us wander so far into the forest, even though that's not really what happened. They were scared, I think, and anger was easier than admitting how scared they were. I was different after that. I had nightmares for weeks. I'd wake up screaming, seeing those two guys standing at the edge of the trees, watching, waiting. Even now, 9 years later, I think about it. I think about what would have happened if Marcus hadn't been there, if I'd been alone, if I'd followed those guys deeper into the forest, farther from the village, into the darkness. I think about how the forest in Alaska is huge, millions of acres of nothing but trees and snow and silence. How easy it would be to disappear out there. How you could walk for days and never see another person. I think about how those guys knew exactly what they were doing. How they'd been friendly enough to seem safe, but pushy enough to get us to follow. How they'd tried to separate us from everything familiar, everything safe. I'm 16 now, old enough to understand what I was too young to understand then. Those weren't just random guys passing through. Nobody just passes through a village of 90 people in rural Alaska in the middle of December. There's nowhere to pass through to. You have to want to be there. And I think they wanted to be there for a reason. Marcus saved my life that day. I'm sure of it. If he hadn't pulled me away when he did, if he hadn't trusted his instincts, I don't think I'd be here writing this. We don't talk about it much, Marcus and me. He lives in Fairbanks now, working for his uncle's construction company. But sometimes, usually around Christmas when the snow starts piling up and the days get short, he'll text me. "Just checking in," the text always says. "Making sure you're good." And I always text back, "I'm good, thanks to you." Because it's true. I'm here because a 7-year-old kid was smart enough and brave enough to recognize danger when he saw it. Smart enough not to second-guess his instincts. Brave enough to grab his friend and run, even when it meant looking scared or stupid or paranoid. I'm here because Marcus knew that sometimes the scariest thing you can do is trust your gut when it's screaming that something is wrong. And I'm here because I trusted him enough to run when he said run, even though I didn't understand why. I never found out who those guys were. The state troopers investigated, but they never found anything. No reports of strangers in the area, no vehicles that didn't belong, nothing. But I don't need to know their names to know what they were. I was 7 years old, standing in a forest in Alaska in December, with darkness falling and no one around. And two strangers wanted to lead me deeper into the trees. I know exactly what they were, and I know exactly how lucky I am that Marcus was there to pull me away from them.
If you made it this far, thank you for watching. This story is a testament to the horrors that can lurk beneath leaving your children without supervision. Tell us where you are watching from in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more tales from the archive.